We are pleased to have you here tonight for this session on community solar. We have three great panelists here tonight, and I just have a couple things to say for our Zoom audience. You've probably done this before, but just in case you haven't, at the bottom of your screen, there's a series of little controls. If you hover over your screen, there's a chat window. So if you have questions or you would like to interact with other members of the audience, go ahead and click on chat and make sure that little drop-down menu above the message box says everyone. That way your message will be seen by everyone if that's what you want. Closed captioning is also available. It's just an automatic transcript, but if that would be helpful for you, you can click on the closed captioning icon at the bottom of your screen and click Show Subtitles. If you want to hide the subtitles, you click that and click Hide Subtitle, just whatever your preference is. If you, for whatever reason, would like to submit an anonymous question, you can do that using the Q&A tool. And I have a poll that I made just to kind of see where everyone is as far as your interest in community solar. I'm going to launch that in just a second, and we can just hear what you have to say. So those in our live audience, we have solar for your home, for your business, if you're curious about it, or if you already subscribe to community solar and are interested in more information. So if you would like to let us know how many of you are here because you're interested in community solar for your home. All right, just about everyone. How about for your business? You're just curious, or you already subscribe to community solar. All right. Well, it looks like the majority of folks here so far are interested for their homes, possibly, or they're just curious and want to know more. So, let's see. Oh, yep, can see that. Okay, well, today we have three panelists, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce them separately, and then they're going to talk for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then at the end of their times, we're going to go ahead and take questions. So if you have a question at any time that occurs to you, please do drop that in the chat. If you're watching on Facebook, you can drop that in the comments, and I will communicate that to our panelists. Or if you're here live in person, hang on to that question and raise your hand when we get to that point, and I will communicate or repeat the question for our panelists. So briefly, today we do have Brian Kuffel from Ameren, Illinois, Emily Asbury with Illinois Power Agency, and Cynthia Segura, from Citizens Utility Board. And to start us out, Brian Kuffel is a supervisor distribution design with Ameren, Illinois. As of April 1st, 2008, he was assigned to the position of single point of contact for all interconnection customers and the net metering coordinator for Ameren, Illinois. Brian is in charge of the Distributed Energy Resources Group for Ameren, Illinois. Brian started at Ameren in 1992 in the customer accounting department. He has a bachelor's degree in business administration from Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi. Brian, thanks for being with us, and welcome.
Welcome. How are we today? It's a very good night, and I appreciate everybody that's on the call. I'll go ahead and share my screen to get my presentation on here as we're talking. Let's see if we can get that done. Let me know when you see that.
Looks great.
Okay, great. Again, welcome to everyone that's on the Zoom call and also in person there at the public library. My name is Brian Kuffel. I've been in charge and dealing with all of the interconnections that we have had, and we're talking about parallel interconnections. So they're talking about, solar, the wind at people's houses, and in addition to that, obviously with what we're talking about today with community solar. I do want to let everybody know we do have a lot of information on our website on amerenillinois.com. You go to the AmerenIllinois.com, right there in the middle of the page towards the bottom right, you'll see on the screen that's popped up right now, it's in the renewables. If you click on learn more, you'll be able to see the next slide shows you distributed generation. It shows you some tabs of renewable, community solar, net metering, and qualifying facilities. The net metering and qualifying facilities, that's compensation methods for if somebody does it at their house. That's two different types of compensation methods. Just kind of wanting to let everybody know about where to find those things on our website. In distributed generation, there is some tools for people that will have them, if they have it at their house, there's some checklists in there and all that stuff. So there's a lot of different information in there that you can go find out to help you with that. I just want to go over a little bit about the history of the solar industry in Illinois. You can see that from 2008, April 1st of 2008 to February 1st of 2016, we only had 469 installations in our whole entire territory of about 1 million electric customers. So that's, in 8-9 years there, it's really wasn't taken off. It was just a really few and far between. There was some there, and obviously there's some reasons why, and we'll go into that here in just a minute. Then if you look at that back and forth, back in 2020, January 1st, you went from 469 up to almost 3,000 in a matter of 3-4 years. So there obviously was something going on there that triggered that. And you'll look at the next numbers and you'll see we went from almost 3,000 to 6,300 in 1 year. So we had another 2,700 or so that all started coming into play. And you'll see that if you look at this slide here, you'll see that there's actually 1,000 of the 1,061 of these customers that were on net metering were community solar subscribers. So in 2020 is when at the end of 2020 was our first community solar installation that went live. What happens is, and we'll go over what community solar is, and you'll remember this in the back of your mind. They had 1,000 there. We go to the next. Now, as of May 1st, 2022, we have 7,429 subscribers to community solar units across our territory. So you can see that over another year's time, there's 33 more community solar installations that came into service, and they were getting subscribers to subscribe to their units. And so, the biggest thing that I hear all the time is customers, some of our Ameren, Illinois customers will call us and say, is this real? Is this real? We hear about it. We get all these flyers in the mail and so on. Is this happening, and is this real? It is real. It's community solar is real in Illinois. There is incentives out there through the Illinois Power Agency, through the state of Illinois for renewable energy credits and so on. So it is real. What I would suggest to customers is, look at what their offers are, and I think Emily and Catherine will go through, and Cynthia will go through some of that as they go through their presentations. And so I don't want to get into too much of that. I just want to make sure everybody knows that it is real. So if you look at these behind the meter installations, you'll see how it ramped up from 2015 all the way to 21. So it's there's definitely activity going on in our territory with solar. Main reasons for the installations, the REC program happened, the community solar. That was one of the FEJA law, the Future Energy Jobs Act, created the ability to do community solar, and having a smart inverter rebate of $250 per kW was a big incentive for these installers and for these developers to develop community solar projects and even behind the meter projects at people's houses or businesses. And there's several different namings that people can show that are what community solar is. Community solar aggregated net metering. If you look at this solar field, this kind of represents what might be a community solar field of, that little piece of the Chow family was, that's their little piece of that community solar field. And Mom and Pop's Diner, that was their little piece. So they get a portion of that solar field, what community solar does. Okay, so community solar, aggregated net metering, virtual net metering, you have a generator unit that's directly to the grid in one area of Ameren, Illinois. It has to be in the Ameren, Illinois territory, and any customer can subscribe to it as long as they are an Ameren, Illinois customer. So if you in the Chillicothe, the Peoria area had a unit there, somebody from Marion in Southern Illinois could be a subscriber to that unit. Okay, so that unit, so anywhere in the Illinois footprint as an Ameren, Illinois customer. The smart inverter rebate, again, that was $250 a kW. Right now, the limit of a community solar unit is a 2 megawatt system. They are, with the new legislation that happened late last year and will be in effect towards the end of this year, it will move that threshold up to 5 megawatts. So any new systems or even the existing systems could be moved up to a 5 megawatt system as soon as that legislation actually takes in effect. One customer can only receive up to 40% of any one unit, but there's no limit on how many units that they can subscribe to. So a customer can only, one like myself, I could only be a subscriber to up to 40% of any one unit. But I could do, if there's 34 of them right now, I could be a subscriber to all 34 of them if I wanted, based on that. Now, here's, don't expect, a lot of people will call us and say, we got some prospects, or these developers are asking us, do you want to rent your land or so on, to be a community solar, out there on your land. What happens is, don't expect all the inquiries for land to move forward. Last time when the renewable energy credits were out there, we had 778 applications, and only 34 of them went forward with going into in service. So you can think about, 778 applications, because the renewable energy credits were so lucrative, that was the interest that we had from the developers. That's where only 34 of them went forward. And so don't think that just because somebody's coming to you to try to get you to rent your land and so on, that doesn't guarantee that they're actually going to move forward with that project on that. So just kind of take that into consideration. Here's a customer, a bill example of a customer that is a subscriber. So this customer has 843 kilowatt hours that they used at the upper right hand, and I don't think I can I can't draw on this or whatever, but the 843 is a usage. They have off-site generation kWh of 1,519. Okay, so that 1,519 will go, that's the off-site generation. So that what happens is it only goes towards, when you're a community solar subscriber, the kilowatt hours that you get from the unit only goes against your supply section of the bill. So you can see at the bottom of the page, that's the delivery section. So you're still getting billed for the 843, but you can see on the second page that you didn't get charged anything, because that 843 was negated by the 1519, and then you actually have 676 left over to go towards the following month's bill. Okay, so it would go and it will roll over for a year's time up until April or October, whatever the customer chose at that point. So that kind of gives you an idea of that. Here's a customer that actually has on-site, they have on-site solar, and they're also an off-site, so they also a subscriber to a unit. So you have an off-site generation that you got from the community solar unit of 651. You had on-site generation of 457, and your usage is 984. So obviously the 651 and this 457 together would negate the 984 for sure. okay? But the 457 is the only thing that's going to go towards the 984 in the delivery section. So that's where we still build the customer for 527, but you can see on the next page that in the supply section, it's 0 because it was all satisfied by the on-site and the off-site. So here's our first, this actually was our first community solar field. It was actually by Peoria, in the Farmington area, and kind of just gives you some ideas of what it looks like in the field. And here's at the bottom of this picture here is where our connection points are, where the metering is and all that, where the connection points are for that field. Here, the last piece that I got for you, the new legislation was passed in 2021. It will increase the community solar unit max from 2 megawatts to 5 megawatts. Net metering for behind the meter customers will have no maximum limit. Right now, currently, it's 2 megawatts for a behind the meter customer. But our interpretation right now of the law is saying that for a behind the meter customer, there's not going to be a limit on how big that unit can be. It also enabled Ameren, Illinois to own its own generation for 2 pilot projects. With Ameren, Illinois, we're going to do 2 pilot solar projects, one in East St. Louis, and then also in the Peoria area in the designated low income areas. Currently, right now, with deregulation that happened in 1996, Ameren, Illinois does not own any power whatsoever. We're not allowed to. But this here will allow us to actually put some solar farms in, 2 of them, and in those 2 areas. There is many more highlights. That legislation that passed late last year was a 900-page legislation. So there was a lot of things that came through that. So that's all I had for my presentation. I knew we was trying to get through 10, 15 minutes. So I'll just hand it back over to Catherine. And if we have any questions, everybody let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, and if you have questions, if you can maybe keep them in mind, because they may be addressed by the other 2 panelists, possibly. But then we'll go back for questions at the very end. So yes, thanks, Brian. And I'm going to go ahead and stop that screen share. Our next panelist is Emily Asbury. Oops. Hello. Emily Asbury joined the Illinois Power Agency in 2021. In her position of program associate, she assists the program managers of the Adjustable Block Program and Illinois Solar for All program. Prior to joining the IPA, Emily served as the Environmental Programs Specialist for the City of Irving, Texas. In this role, she was responsible for coordinating educational events for Irving residents on environmental awareness, helping the city reach its renewable energy procurement goals, and serving as the staff liaison to its council-appointed Green Advisory Board. Emily holds a bachelor's degree in natural resource ecology and management from Louisiana State University. Emily, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Get up and running. All right. Okay, so thank you so much for having me again. As Catherine mentioned, I'm with the Illinois Power Agency. Very happy to be here. In my previous job, I did a lot of outreach, so it's fun to do it again. I'm a little rusty. So let's go ahead and jump in. So a quick rundown of what I'm going to be going over tonight. A little bit about who the Illinois Power Agency is. We're going to talk about community solar again, and we're going to hit that a couple times tonight, I'm sure. I'm going to talk about the 2 programs that my agency administers. We're going to go over the incentives, why we have these programs and the benefits it can give you. I'm going to go over how to enter the program and how you can do that and look on our website. And we're going to talk about a little bit about consumer protections at the end. Okay, so just a little bit about the IPA as an agency. So we are an independent state agency that was established in Illinois in 2007. So we have several responsibilities, but we're responsible for procuring energy for residential and small commercial entities who have not chosen service from an alternate supplier of Illinois electric utilities. So unless you signed up through a different supplier, you're most likely getting your energy through Ameren, where you guys are in the state. And then we're also responsible for implementation of the Illinois Renewable Portfolio Standard. And what that means, it's just policy that's intended to increase the development of renewables in Illinois. And so we do that through two specific programs I'm going to talk about tonight. The Adjustable Block Program, otherwise known as Illinois Shines, and Illinois Solar for All. So another quick refresh about how community solar works. Like I said, I think you're going to hear this a couple of times tonight, but it's good to drill it into your head a little bit because it's kind of hard to conceptualize sometimes. So the solar panels, it's usually a large centralized project where anyone with an electricity bill can subscribe to a portion of it. And when you subscribe to a portion of it, you'll see it on your bill as credits back, just like Brian with Ameren just showed you. So it's a really cool concept. And Illinois is really, charging path forward with community solar, which is very cool. So talking about some of the programs that the IPA administers, the first one I'm going to talk about is our largest program. It's called the Adjustable Block Program, but public facing and marketing and all that, we're typically going to be calling it Illinois Shines because that's a much more convenient, title to call it than the Adjustable Block Program. So moving forward, I'm going to call it Illinois Shines. So what it is it's administered by our agency. It's an incentive program that supports development of new solar within the state of Illinois. And there are two different ways that you as a customer could participate in this program. You can either host a distributed generation system. And so what that is when you think of solar, you're probably thinking of driving down your neighborhood, you see solar panels on someone's roof, maybe on their property. That's distributed generation, where it's offsetting your energy use. Or what we're talking about tonight, you can subscribe in a community solar project. So like we just said, that's a large centralized project which you subscribe to a share of its output. And so through both of our programs, how you're going to interact with the program is through something called an approved vendor. So I'm going to say that term a couple times tonight. So what an approved vendor is, it's a solar company, maybe it's an installer, maybe it's the marketing company, what have you, that participates in the program. So you're not going to directly apply the project that you have or your subscription to the program. You're going to work with an approved vendor, which is one of these companies. I'm going to show you how to find one in a little bit. You're going to work with your approved vendor who will then submit your project or your subscription to the program. And they're going to deal with all the, paperwork and the nitty-gritty and all that stuff. So the other program that the IPA administers is the Illinois Solar for All program. So this is really great because it helps make solar installations and subscriptions more affordable and ensure that the benefits of all this, exciting solar economy that we have in Illinois are reaching low income and environmental justice communities. And so it's important to point out that residential participants must be income eligible to be part of this program. So that means at or below 80% area median income. If you're interested in, if you're eligible or your organization might be eligible, if you go to the Illinois Solar for All website that I'm going to link at the end of this presentation, that has a lot more information and resources on how to know what's eligible and what isn't. And same as Illinois Shines, participants will work with an approved vendor who will help them be submitted and navigate through the program. So there's some additional categories for Illinois Solar for All. So you have distributed generation, like we said before, that's usually the solar panels that are going to be on your roof or your property. There's community solar, which is what we're talking about tonight. And then there's also a category for nonprofit and public facilities, specifically that are serving and located in low income and environmental justice communities. And then the asterisk is on here, symbolizing that the fees won't exceed 50% of the value of electricity produced, and there's no upfront costs. And so that helps lower the burden for a low income or environmental justice community. So you don't have to put a bunch of cash down right away. It helps make it more affordable. So those are our two main programs. It gets very complicated, but I'm not going to go into all the nitty gritty tonight. We'll keep things pretty base level, but this is just a quick rundown about how that incentive would work. And you saw a little bit about this on Ameren's presentation as well. So what happens is there's a big old solar project, if we're talking about community solar. It produces energy, renewable energy, that is measured in RECs. And so a certain amount of RECs are produced from that project. So Ameren, the utility, is going to purchase those RECs from the developer or the approved vendor. And Ameren is going to pay them for those RECs. And then that savings or that payment gets passed on to you, the customer, usually on your bill, as you can see on here, and as you saw from Ameren's presentation. So it's a really cool way to incentivize new projects. As I talked about at the very beginning, one of the main goals for the agency is to incentivize and develop new renewable energy in Illinois. So these programs are a great way to do that. So I wanted to briefly mention this. Brian also mentioned the new legislation that passed, which is very exciting. In September last year, CEJA, the Climate Equitable Jobs Act, passed into law. And so that expanded a lot of things in our programs, and I won't go into all of it. But one exciting new category, specifically in Illinois Shines, is the community-driven community solar category. So we already had community solar, which we're now referring to usually as traditional community solar. Now we have this new category, community-driven community solar. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but it's really cool because the goal of this category is to increase diversity in the hosting community and where the project will be, different business models of projects, and the sizes of the projects. So like I said, we won't get into too much detail because you as the customer don't really have to know all of this background information, but it is very interesting. If you're interested in learning more about this legislation, more about the new categories, any of that stuff, that's on the website. There's also been a lot of news articles written about it. So definitely recommend checking it out if you're interested in renewable energy. So I've said approved vendor about 100 times during this presentation. So you're probably wondering how you actually find one. So if you want to be involved in the program, but you don't really know how to go about doing that, we have a resource on our Illinois Shines website. If you go to the website, it's up there at the top of the banner. If you can't find it, there's a search button too, which makes this all much easier. And that's how you're going to find your approved vendor. So you go to the Find Approved Vendor tool, and you can type in, if you're specifically looking for community solar, you can type in community solar here, and you can see that several of the AV's approved vendors work on multiple different categories. So some might be distributed generation and community solar. So you can weed it down that way. And I know, you might have gotten a mailer in your mailbox. You might have had a salesman come up to your door or seen an ad online. If you've seen a company that you're like, oh, I'm interested in working with them, but I only want to work with them if they're in the program, this is a great tool, because then you can look up that specific company, see if they're involved in the program and all of that stuff. So it's very, very useful tool if you're wanting to get involved. And I know that Cynthia is going to talk about this, but we always encourage people, you can shop around, you can look at different offers. There's a lot of different approved vendors within the program. We, of course, as a government agency, aren't going to recommend any in particular or anything like that, but we have all this information on our website, which is great to, peruse and look around. And then lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about consumer protections, which is something that Cynthia is also going to be talking about. But we take consumer protections very seriously within the agency. We've been expanding this part of our programs, and it's not to put up a bunch of guardrails or make solar harder for businesses to be involved with. But what we want to do is, discourage and protect customers from misleading and unfair business practices. We want to help residents make informed choices on solar. and build trust within our programs. They're expanding and growing with CEJA, and we want to make sure that the consumers trust and believe in the programs. And this is state administered money. We want to make sure that it supports entities that are responsibly serving our public. So another really cool feature on our website is this consumer protections portal. I only have a little snapshot here, but there's more information on here. And you can actually go to this database here and look up different approved vendors. We also have something called designees that work with approved vendors. Those are also companies. And you can see if there's been any issues with any of them. You can see what complaints are in the program right now and how they've been resolved. It's very interesting to take a look around. And then there's also a spot where you can file a complaint. So if you're not involved in the program, you might not have anything to file a complaint about. But let's say a salesperson came to your door, was trying to pitch you a community solar subscription, and something felt wrong about it. You know that they gave you false information, or maybe they said something that you're like, I don't think that's accurate. Anything like that, anything that feels suspicious, definitely encourage you to lodge a complaint, because we have a whole team that will look into it. They'll contact the company. They do investigation on like online ads that say incorrect information, all sorts of things. So it's a really great resource, for you, the customer. So I highly encourage you to take a look around there and get more comfortable, if you are choosing to go solar. And that's the bulk of my information. I listed out some of our websites. On those websites, you can find more contact information. You can sign up for email blast, which I highly recommend if you're interested in staying up to date on our programs. But that's my presentation. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll answer them after our last presentation.
Thanks very much, Emily.
Thank you.
So yeah, do keep those questions in mind or pop them in the chat. And as Emily said, we will get to them after Cynthia talks. I feel like I had one more thing to remind people of, but I forgot it. So much for that. I'm sure if it's important, it will come back to me. Meanwhile, Cynthia Segura is a carbon-free buildings coordinator at Citizens Utility Board. She joined the organization in March 2021 as part of the outreach team with a focus on solar, energy efficiency, and building decarbonization. She works in educating the public on all things utility policy related. She also participates in various policy and stakeholder meetings to stay up to date on the rollout of new renewable energy and energy efficiency programs. Cynthia graduated from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in 2020 with a BS in Natural Resources and Environmental Science. Welcome, Cynthia.
All right, thank you so much, Catherine. I am going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right, and you guys can hear me all right? We're good to go?
Yes, indeed.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, so today I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to find a community solar deal or offer. I'm going to talk a little bit about alternative suppliers and how that differs from community solar. And then I'm just going to highlight the importance of energy efficiency because I simply cannot help it. But first, I thought we would do a bit of an introduction on what Citizens Utility Board is and how we could possibly be of service to you. If you have something utility related, some sort of question, some sort of complaint, or need a resource, we're here to help. So CUB is a nonprofit consumer advocacy group that focuses on utilities. So this means that we work in utility oversight and we work within down in Springfield to lobby for stronger consumer protections in the utility system. So we represent utility ratepayers all across the state. But we also do a lot of consumer education and outreach. So like I said, or like Catherine said, I'm a part of the outreach team. So we have a team that works all across the state to educate folks on different utility programs and policies that are able to benefit them. So I just want to highlight a few of our services. One being a hotline. You can see this number here. It's also plastered on everywhere on our website, but this hotline runs during business hours. So if you ever have any sort of utility related complaint or question or concern, we have consumer rights counselors on staff. So we can, point you to a resource. If it's solar, if you have a confusion or question about solar, we can help you out with that. Or we can let you know of your rights under state law, or we can, help you, we can file a complaint on your behalf to a certain utility or certain company. Utility related. Just wanted to highlight that in case anybody does come across some sort of question or, case down the road. We also have a website, citizensutilityboard.org, which hosts a lot of really great fact sheets and guides on just about anything utility related. We have a fact sheet on community solar. We have a website called solarinthecommunity.com, which is a website just on community solar, kind of going through FAQs. Basically, a lot of the information that's being shared today. We're in the process of creating a guide, a consumer's guide to going solar. So be on the lookout for that as well. And then lastly, we have a virtual utility bill clinic. So if any of you folks would like your bills assessed by a CUB staff member, you can send a scanned copy to this email right here. And a CUB staff member will actually reach out and we can schedule a call and we can help you understand your bills, how to read them, how to spot billing errors. And then we can also highlight potential opportunities or programs that you could be eligible for as well. And then lastly, that bullet here advocates for affordable and sustainable energy policies in Illinois. As you can tell from this introduction, we're not inherently an environmental organization, but it just so happens that clean and sustainable energy strongly aligns with affordability and consumer protections. And so that's great that we have available programs within the state that have strong consumer protections for folks to access clean energy. I'm going to go ahead and skip this since the last two presentations kind of covered how community solar works. I thought I would quickly glaze over how the billing works because it can be a little bit confusing for folks. And if you need more explanation on this, please do ask and I can explain after the presentation as well. With community solar, it's a little confusing because you actually receive an additional bill most of the time. So this means that without community solar, you typically just receive your electric bill, right? Or in this case, Ameren, your electric/gas bill. But with community solar, you're going to receive your electric bill. And as Brian and Emily mentioned, you'll receive net metering credits for the electricity that the panels you're subscribed to are producing. So you can see that kind of highlighted in this example. So let's say this consumer received $50 worth of net metering credits on their electric bill. But they do have to turn around and pay a community solar provider fee. And I will say that a lot of the offers through Illinois Shines for community solar have a percentage of savings guarantee. So that's important to look at when you're looking at different offers to ask that question. Does it have a percentage of savings guarantee? And if so, how much? And so you can see that this community solar provider bill, this consumer is being charged for that $50 worth of credits, but they're receiving that at a 20% discount. So net wise, between the two bills in this 1 month, this consumer is saving $10. But I want to be super clear because community solar billing can be a bit wonky since some people might not know that you do receive an extra bill. But net wise, depending on the offer, you could be guaranteed to save money. So something to keep in mind. Hopefully that wasn't confusing. I can explain it again or in a different way if that would be helpful. I do want to quickly play this video that my colleague created a bit ago because it answers a lot of questions that people may have. Please let me know if you can't hear this.
We covered Illinois' community solar programs and how you can still
Can you guys hear that?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
will access the benefits of solar energy, even if you aren't able to install solar panels on your home. Illinois has 2 community solar programs, Illinois Solar for All and Illinois Shines. Illinois Solar for All is a state-administered solar incentive program to support solar and income-qualified communities. Illinois Shines is a state-administered solar incentive program to support solar across the state, regardless of income. Here are some things to look out for when considering a community solar offer. First, check your electricity supplier. Most community solar offers guarantee savings based on the default utility supply rate. If you're with an alternative supplier, you probably will not save money on community solar. Secondly, it's always a good idea to shop around. Try to compare at least 3 offers to make sure you're getting the best deal. All companies participating in the Illinois Solar for All and Illinois Shines programs have to meet certain requirements. Before you sign a contract, you must receive and sign off on a standard disclosure form from your provider. Because the form is standardized, it makes it easier for consumers to compare their options from one vendor to another. While not your contract, it includes important information about the project and contract terms, including the length of the contract term, when you'll start receiving bill credits, your subscription cost, and whether it can increase over the contract term, any fees you'll be responsible for, whether there's an early termination fee, and how much, whether you'll have to switch your electricity supplier. This is not necessary to sign up for community solar, but some offers do require this, and whether your provider is guaranteeing savings. The Illinois Shines program does not require offers to guarantee savings, so be careful. Most community solar offers that we've seen through the Illinois Shines program so far offer savings from 10 to 20% off the default utility supply rate. The Illinois Solar for All program requires offers to provide savings of at least 50% on supply. The standard disclosure form also includes contact information for your provider, and if they're unresponsive, information on how to file a complaint with the state program, the Attorney General's office, and/or the Illinois Commerce Commission. The Illinois Shines program maintains a public database of consumer complaints. You can check it if you're concerned about a specific company. It's also a good idea to ask your provider whether a credit check is required and how you'll be billed, as some offers require setting up automatic payment. So how do you sign up for a community solar offer? The Illinois Solar for All and Illinois Shines programs list the community solar projects that have been approved on their websites. Check your utility territory, and you should be able to find the solar provider company contact. If you have questions, contact the program directly. We know that with 2 state programs and multiple offers, it can be time-consuming to compare offers. CUB created a website called solarinthecommunity.com, where you can find information about the programs and evaluations of each offer, including a comparison chart. Make sure to always read your contract and disclosure form before signing up. If you have general solar questions or concerns when it comes to your utility bills, you can call the CUB hotline at 1-800-669-5556, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay, I am, 1 second. Okay, awesome. I couldn't help but show that video because my colleague, or my former colleague, Kate, did a really great job on that. So this checklist here is also available on solarinthecommunity.com, which is our community solar page. It kind of just goes over a little bit of what that video was stating. So you're going to want to ask how long the contract is. Do they require a credit check? How are you going to be billed? What is the cancellation policy? All of these sorts of questions are good to keep in mind when shopping around. And like the video mentioned, to help interested consumers make a decision, CUB has created this community solar offer comparison chart that highlights some of the terms, as well as we created individual blogs on each of these offers. So we have posted information on all of the offers that we are currently aware of in the state, and CUB has compiled this information and recommends consumers consider signing up for community solar, but want to highlight here, we are not the state solar administrator. We are not the IPA. We're really here to service as a consumer education platform here. So we do our best to provide transparent information to consumers, and we don't endorse any certain offer. That's why we always encourage folks that before actually choosing a specific offer, going through with one, it might be a good idea to check the Better Business Bureau, as well as the Illinois Shines consumer complaint database, as Emily mentioned in that last presentation as well. And I want to highlight that these offers specifically in this chart are associated with the Illinois Shines program. So this is not specifically for low-income consumers. So if you qualify for Illinois Solar for All, it is highly recommended that you go that route and you check the Illinois Solar for All website for current community solar offers. And if you have questions about Solar for All, CUB is always here as a resource as well. But like stated, we're not the administrator. Just kind of highlighting that same information here. You want to compare different offers. You want to shop around. That's how you're going to be the most educated consumer, and you can be the most confident in your decision there. With community solar, like Emily stated, you can look at the approved vendor database on the Illinois Shines website. CUB also created this tool here for folks, which is the one I was just sharing. For rooftop solar, if you're interested in that as well, you could also use the Illinois Shines approved vendor database, as Emily showed. I also like routing folks to the Illinois Solar Energy Association. They have a residential installers directory, which is pretty cool because you can actually type in your address and a list of installers in your area will pop up. So it's good to go ahead, maybe try that out and also cross-check with the approved vendor database. And then, as the video mentioned, when you are participating in either of these programs, Illinois Shines or Illinois Solar for All, you want to make sure that you're getting your program brochure and your standard disclosure form before signing a contract. That program brochure is really just going to be the basics of, in this case, community solar. What is net metering? What is the concept of community solar? What is the Illinois Shines or the Illinois Solar for All program? And then the standard disclosure form, that's actually just going to go into more detail as to what your contract is explicitly saying, or how long is your contract? How much energy is supposed to be produced? Who do you contact if you come into if you run across an issue? So, and like the video also stated, those are standard, so it can be easy to compare apples to apples when you're looking at different offers that way as well. And if you have concerns, it might be best to contact the program directly. Like mentioned, we are not the administrator, but the Illinois Shines and Illinois Solar for All both have really great consumer protections landing pages. So I would recommend checking those out. And then we're always here as a resource if you need us being CUB. Okay. I also want to highlight what community solar is versus an alternative supplier. Like I mentioned, we have a hotline, and for a really long time, I received those hotline calls. And I would say a good 90% of those calls were, I just received this in the mail. Is this legit? And sometimes it was an alternative supplier marketing clean energy. So a third-party supplier trying to sell consumers their clean energy supply. And it kind of sounds confusing because one, you're not installing anything on your home with both routes, and two, it sounds like either way you're up taking, clean energy, which might not always be the case with alternative suppliers. So what happens with alternative suppliers is that, since most people are on the default Ameren electric rate. If you're with an alternative supplier, you're charged potentially a different rate, most likely, and it could be higher. A lot of alternative suppliers will market themselves as clean energy. What this means is that they're actually purchasing renewable energy credits or RECs on your behalf. Now, this is just to say that renewable energy credits, as Emily stated, they're generated anytime a renewable project is produced. But this doesn't always mean that they're coming from newly built renewable energy projects. Now, this is not the case with community solar. Community solar instills, is working on the development of new projects and projects that are built in Illinois. We don't have that same level of guarantee with alternative supplier green clean plans. Those renewable energy credits don't necessarily have to come from the state. So that's why sometimes I get consumers asking, should I enroll with an alternative supplier clean or green plan, or go the community solar route? And our answer here at CUB is going to be the community solar route, because community solar is going to encourage new projects built in the state, and they could potentially save you money. Whereas alternative supplier green plans, they tend to overcharge you. So just wanted to highlight that there is an actual difference, although it might not seem like it, because either way, you're not installing anything on your home, but on the back end of things, community solar varies from an alternative supplier clean plan. Okay, also want to highlight energy efficiency because I simply cannot help it. Energy efficiency is one of the fastest, most cost-effective ways to save money and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It works to, create jobs and to meet our growing energy demand as well. So there's, environmental benefits. We're lowering greenhouse gas emissions. There's economic benefits. On a consumer level, you can lower your individual utility bills. The entire mechanism of energy efficiency creates jobs, and it also helps with stabilizing electricity prices. And then on the utility system benefits, energy efficiency can provide long-term benefits by lowering overall energy demand. So this can reduce the need to invest in new electricity generation, transmission, and infrastructure. And then there's risk management as well. Energy efficiency also helps to diversify utility resource portfolios. So all across the board, energy efficiency is something to practice within your home, even if you don't end up signing up for community solar. And I also want to highlight that the utility, Ameren, has really has a lot of programs available to folks as well. Also wanted to highlight that first bullet there. That is a state program called the Illinois Home Weatherization Program. That's actually administered by the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. But just wanted to throw this on there because that is an income qualified weatherization program. So you can receive a lot of benefits to make your home more energy efficient if you qualify for that program. But I would recommend checking out that program along with the Ameren programs as well for energy efficiency. CUB has a lot of great resources on energy efficiency, just energy saving tips. You want to clean out your HVAC filter, you want to take advantage of your smart thermostat, you want to use LED light bulbs. There's a ton out there, and I would recommend checking out the Ameren website for energy efficiency and CUB as well if you need any sort of other resources. But with that, that is my entire presentation. If you get anything out of this, just know that solarinthecommunity.com exists and that there's information out there. And if you need help, that we're here to help. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, and to all our panelists. I'm going to ask everyone to start their videos up again and come on up on the screen. And we can, at this point, go ahead and start taking questions. I know we did have a hand up in our in-person audience as well as on our virtual audience. So do you remember what your question was?
Okay, so how much does it cost to subscribe to one of those programs?
Sure. I don't know if you can hear that from your end of things, panelists, but the question was, how much does it cost to subscribe to one of these programs?
It would vary, it would actually vary, and that would all be based on the unit owner. That would be a negotiation between the unit owner and you as the subscriber.
So basically the subscription, whatever you pay for your subscription is added to your usage bill, minus the deductions and discounts.
It would not be on an Ameren bill. Your negotiated rate towards in terms of what you're paying to have that subscription, that would not be represented on your bill. You would have, that could be a different, all kinds of different types of contract. You could pay for it all up front. You could be doing an installment plan that they would be billing you for. There's all kinds of different ways that they could do that.
Can I actually share my screen again? I'm thinking of the one slide that I have that shows a bit of the billing process, if that's easier.
Sure.
Okay, well, oops, sorry.
While we're getting there, panelists, are you able to hear our audience members pretty well? Awesome. The microphone on this laptop must be good. Okay, go ahead.
So, I wanted to explain that all of the offers that CUB is aware of in the state for community solar actually offer a percentage of savings guarantee. So this is a percentage of savings that is tied to the supply of your electric bill. So if you see in this example, without community solar, you just have your electric bill. With community solar, like the video mentioned and I had mentioned, a lot of the offers have up to 20% savings guarantee. So that means up to, you're guaranteed to save up to, depending on the offer, 20% of the supply side of your electric bill. And this is important, I want to say, because your electric bill is divided into supply, delivery, taxes, and fees. We're talking about the supply right here. So in this specific example, this offer had a 20% savings guarantee. So this consumer received $50 worth of credits, and then they were actually charged for those credits on that community solar subscription fee, but at a 20% discount. So they had a net savings of $10 that month. Does that make sense? And this
I
varies.
think,
Sorry, go ahead.
we may have kind of a follow-up question.
Sure.
Well, all right, so I'm trying to understand. I get it that the bill itself is offset by solar energy credits and discounts for that. However, I understand too that you have to pay to subscribe to a program. So that's in addition to whatever your delivery is and whatever your solar power is that you're getting, and your deductions and your credits for renewable energy credits and all that. It's kind of like, for instance, if I subscribe to Amazon Video, but I want to watch videos, I have to pay for each individual video I watch. But I'm paying a subscription to Amazon Video, basically, is what I'm saying, right? Kind of like the same concept.
Did you all hear that question? Just processing it. Okay.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that that's a good example myself,
Well,
because it's you don't have to pay a subscription and then another prescription. I mean, you have to negotiate your savings that you're going to have, as Cynthia talked about in her example. It could be that subscriber or that unit owner is only going to guarantee you 10% savings instead of 20% savings. And that's what they're doing, is they're guaranteeing you a certain amount of savings.
Oh, so you're not actually paying to be with that particular provider. You're just paying for the service.
So there's not a subscription fee on top of payment for the energy?
No, so you're going to receive your electric bill, that's going to have credits, and then you're going to receive the community solar subscription fee, and that fee is going to be dependent on the credits you're receiving on the electric bill, if that makes sense. But there's no other additional charge or fee on that. So, but it's always important to check out the standard disclosure form or the term of that specific offer.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we do have another live question. I'm just going to go to our online audience to see if the person who had their hand up earlier is still here. I don't see that attendee anymore, and I don't see any questions in our chat, but do feel free to drop those in their online audience. And meanwhile, yes.
So getting back to the subscription, can I subscribe to more kilowatt hours than what I actually use in my home? Say, for instance, my home consumes 5,000 kilowatt hours. Can I subscribe to 8,000 kilowatt hours?
Did you all hear that one?
Yes, you can. Yeah, yes, you can. There's no limit for how many, because what happens is, you say you're subscribing to 5,000 kilowatt hours. It's really not a set amount of kilowatt hours that you're subscribing to. It's a percentage of their output of that unit. That unit will each and every month, obviously during the summertime, it's going to have more production than it is during the wintertime, because just clearly sunlight hours. So what they're going to do is they're going to allocate, say they allocate 1% of that unit to you as a subscriber. So whatever each and every month, we measure how many kilowatt hours that goes out to the grid from that unit. And if you're getting 1% of that 1% will then get allocated to your bill. And how many ever kilowatt hours 1% is, that's what will be allocated to your bill.
I just also
so they allocate it in a percentage basis, not kilowatt hour basis.
I seem to remember you also saying you could get a maximum of 40% per unit. So basically, what he's saying is he can get 5 units and get up to 40% on each one of those units, and maybe even get money back for what he's is subscribed to. I don't know.
Well, I mean, remember that you as a subscriber are taking it under net metering. Net metering, the law of net metering does not allow you to get, like I say, money in hand. All that is a credit of kilowatt hours towards your bill. If you have excess, that excess would roll over to the next month and the following month and the following month. And you'd be able to continue to use those kilowatt hours, but you'd never get to a point where you're ahead where you could call in and say, hey, I'd like to cash those in, because that's just not allowed in the law itself.
So, okay, so how do you know what percentage, you say you can get up to 40%? And what's the variable, what determines where you're at on that scale?
That's between you and that unit owner.
Okay.
I will say that when you are subscribing to community solar, typically that company will actually look at your usage data over the past 12 months, and they will they will size your subscription to that. So it's not very typical that, I don't think people oversubscribe or that way, I should say, but they look at your usage data, and then they'll size your subscription according to how much you used in the last 12 months.
Usually what we've seen based on the number of customers that are subscribers, it's usually way undersubscribed, making sure that they don't have a lot of oversubscription type customers like you're talking about.
We do have another question.
But that gives you the option. That actually gives you the option of being a subscriber to multiple to get where you want to be in terms of the kilowatt hours that you want to get from multiple units, even if you needed to at that point.
So coming back to the subscription and the cost, can I negotiate with the supplier for, say for instance, I'm paying 7 cents a kilowatt hour for the supplier charge now. If I want to go community solar, can I negotiate, say, 3.5 cents a kilowatt hour? How does this work?
Did you catch that? Can you negotiate the rate per kilowatt hour with the supplier? Is that what?
That's it. Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, deregulation happened in 1996. And since then, you've always, as a customer, has always been able to negotiate your rate with a supplier. Now, the supplier might not, they might give you options and say, okay, for a 12-month contract, you're going to have this price, 24-month contract, you're going to have this price, a 36-month, you're going to have this price. And you can negotiate accordingly. Now, some of them are big enough suppliers that they just say, hey, these are the prices that we have right now based on the market and all that. And so there's might not be much negotiating at that point. But that you have every option of going with that supplier with those contract types, or go to another supplier and shop around until you find the one that you like.
To follow up on your comment earlier, Brian, when you said that you could, most suppliers will try and estimate, so you don't oversubscribe, but then you can subscribe with someone else to kind of get to that sweet spot. Are you able to maybe rather than add different subscriptions from different suppliers, to just adjust the amount that you're subscribed to the one that you're already subscribed to, if that makes sense?
Sure. That would be a negotiation with the unit owner.
Mm. Okay.
And the unit owner is one of those companies that you listed earlier. It's approved by the state and the federal government.
Well, they're one of the solar developers, or the solar developer owner of that unit. And what happens is, a lot of times what we've seen is a lot of the developers, they will develop the project, they'll get it to a certain level or whatever, and then they'll sell it to another unit or another company that wants to run and maintain the unit. And then they're the ones that actually manage all of the subscribers and maintain the actual unit to make sure it's still in service and still producing kilowatt hours like it's supposed to.
Yeah, and that's typically what we would refer to, like during the presentation, as the approved vendor. Like I said, there's sometimes other companies that are called designees or et cetera, but typically when we're referring to the approved vendor, that's who you're going to be talking with, about your contract and the specifics of it.
If I had a personal unit on my property, I don't know what it costs to put one up, but could I put a personal unit on the property and then tie it into one of the vendors and sell my energy to them? What's in excess of what I use for my property?
What you would have to do is, it would have to be electrically connected. It couldn't be behind your meter just because it's on your, what happens is anything that's connected behind your meter, it would have to be credited to the account that it's connected behind. Because then it would not be considered community solar at that point.
Gotcha.
If it's just a spare unit anywhere in our territory, if it's a unit that goes directly to the grid, it can be considered community solar, and then you could be the owner and allocate those kilowatt hours to multiple subscribers.
Yeah, and if you're interested in, building a project on your property, typically that would be a distributed generation project. So if you were looking for the approved vendors or more information, that's what you would want to look up, is distributed generation.
Are there any more questions? And I will say, for our Zoom audience, if you'd rather speak your question, you can use the little raise hand tool as well, and I can unmute you so that you can ask that out loud. All right. Well, it doesn't look like we have any hands raised, virtual or otherwise, right now, but I'll just ask, do our panelists have any final thoughts to leave us with?
I just want to say thank you.
I just say thanks for everyone that was. I just say thanks to everyone that. Sorry, Emily. Thanks for everyone for being in attendance, and I think it was a good presentation from all the other two presenters and all that. I think it's great information.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you. And if you're interested in this, it can be hard concepts to understand. Even for those of us who work in the industry, it can be a little confusing sometimes. So don't be overwhelmed. There's a lot of great resources out there, on all of our different websites, and there's lots of, YouTube videos and everything. Just make sure it comes from a, credited source, but it's a very interesting topic. So definitely, check out some of those resources.
Also wanted to say thank you, and I think we've covered a lot of great information, and I'm always available for questions. If you have a question, always I'm available via email, or you can call the CUB hotline, or anything on the CUB website is also very consumer facing in mind. So I will leave it at that, but thank you for tuning in today.
Yes. Thanks once again to our panelists and our audiences. We will be sending out a follow-up email that has a lot of the resources that were mentioned tonight, and links that you can do some more research or get more information as you're interested. A recording of this program will also be available on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. That's Chillicothe Public Library. And in the comments of those, or in the description, I will also try to share as much of this information as I can for use in further research. So, and you can share that with anyone else who you think might be interested in getting more information through watching this recording. So once again, thank you ever so much, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Go on.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.